Well, hi everyone. I had to think. It's not good morning, is it? And it's not good afternoon. It's actually good evening, everybody. And this is our, what is it? Healing Hands Around the World. We know it's an odd time. We're not quite sure how many of you are joining us. Maybe I'm even now just talking to myself. However, whether I'm talking to myself or not, first of all, we have Grey Eagle here standing to my right side. He's right there with me. And we have Chris in as our facilitator, can't say it properly. And also, Chris, I should ask, is there anybody there? Or are we talking to ourselves?
Yes, we've got some people already in the chat room, but it's a little bit slower than the morning show, so because it's a different time. But yeah, we're getting some people logging in.
Okay, all right. So why don't I then talk for a little bit and give people a chance to log in or what have you, um, and then I'll hand it back to you to see whoever we have, and is there anybody in the chat room? Anybody got any questions? So this is this little show that we're doing here is about our Healing Hands Around the World, which is, if you go to YouTube, you'll find out all sorts of information. You'll find out how I like to prepare people, how I like my students to get ready to give healing, how we can raise our level of consciousness. You can find all of those things. But I thought that tonight, there are so many people who have questions. So I'm going to anticipate one or two of them. A lot of people will ask me, is it possible to heal myself? And the answer to that is absolutely, because the healing energy that we create, the healing energy that we tap into, that God force, that healing energy that comes from that incredible pure God force, we can, as soon as we tap in, as soon as we connect with that, we can direct that energy, if we so choose, to ourselves or to others. And another question is, do you have to put your hands on someone to give them healing? The answer to that is no, because thought is the most powerful and positive thing that we have. You know, God gave us this energy, this thought, these little tiny thoughts, these little pulses of energy that go out into the universe. So our thoughts are kind of like I don't know how to describe it, sort of little pulses of energy, little darts of energy, sort of going out into the universe, reaching the person or the situation that we are sending that our thoughts out to. And then, because they are our thoughts, our energy, they then come boomeranging back to us, which is why it's so important to make sure that we have the right energy, good energy, positive energy, powerful energy. Because if we're sending out negative energy out into the universe, again, it does the same thing. It goes out, it reaches the person or the situation that we're sending those thoughts out to. And as it's going out into the universe, it's gathering up similar energy. Then, of course, when it reaches its, let's say, target, then it has to come back to us. And as it's coming back to us, again, it's gathering like energy. So that when we send it out and then it comes back to us, when it comes back to us, it's at least twice, if not more, way more powerful than the energy that we send out. So if we're sending out negative energy, it comes back to us. We wonder, why are we so depressed? Because we're sending out negative energy. We wonder why, why do I feel so tired? Why do I feel so worn? Why do I feel so negatively towards other people? It's because we've been sending out that negative energy, which comes back to us tenfold. and creates within us a negativity that we may not like at all. By the same token, when we send out positive energy, healing energy, pure, beautiful, positive thoughts, good thoughts, powerful thoughts, they do the same thing. As they're going out into the universe, they're gathering up the same kind of energy, like attracts like. And as they reach that person or that target that we're sending those thoughts out to, again, it's our energy. So it has to come back to us. And as it's coming back to us again, it's gathering as on its way, it's gathering like energy. And if that energy is powerful and good and positive, then that keeps us positive. It keeps us, reminds us of the power that we have, but it keeps us positive and it keeps us upbeat, and it keeps us feeling good. So our thoughts are living things, and they go out there, and it's up to us to make sure that those thoughts are as positive and as powerful as we can get them, especially if we're giving healing to other people, because we want those people to have the most positive and powerful experience that they can possibly have. So power, energy, vibration, all of these things are very, very necessary. It's necessary for us to understand as much as we can what is happening, because as healers, as people who, whether you're giving your healing to yourself or whether you're giving it to someone else, it's going out there and then it's coming back to us, and we want to make sure that our patient or the situation that we're sending healing out to has a good experience, a positive experience, and a powerful experience, pure, powerful experience. So the responsibility of sending healing or of giving healing to other people is tremendous. When we give healing to ourselves, of course, it's important also because we need to make sure that we're going to benefit from the energy that we're creating and absorbing into our own selves and into our own soul. Because as we're giving healing, whether it's to ourselves or whether it's to others, it's all about feeding the soul. It's all about giving energy to the soul, bringing light, bringing inspiration, bringing joy to the soul so that the soul can shine brighter and brighter. And the spirit, which is the energy or the aura of the soul, shines brighter and brighter and basically flowers, blooms, whatever you like to call it, however you'd like to describe it. We are giving healing to feed the soul. Chris, okay. Is there anybody there?
Yes, we've got our I don't want to say normal crew, but a lot of your fans that follow you here.
Great.
And we have a couple of questions and a few comments.
Oh, good. Let's go then.
Judith says, Rosemary, I am praying and affirming for a pet in my lap, affirming for a friend who will be undergoing a procedure. I am so thankful for this opportunity to join you and others.
Okay. Let me answer that before we go any further. Okay. When you are giving healing, whether it's to a pet or a person or whoever, and I like the hands-on approach because it feels as if we're actually doing something, or whether we're sending out to other people, it is very important, and I feel it's very necessary to say this to you, young lady. It's very important that we make sure before we begin healing, before we even start on the process of healing, it's very important for us to make sure that we, as healers, are a clear and a beautiful and a perfect channel. In other words, there should be no negativity around us. We should have asked for healing for ourselves. We always begin with the healing prayer. And again, if you want to know more about this, just go to the healing channel, Hands Around the World. You can find it on YouTube. And there are lots of videos there that you can listen to that will help you to understand what it is I'm talking about. when I say before we begin healing on everyone else, we need to make sure that we, the healer, is positive and has that connection to that God force and to that God energy. We can't just sit there and just dish it out as we think, because we need to get the best and the most out of things, and we need to make sure that what we're sending out, we need to be responsible about the kind of energy that we're sending out. So before giving healing, we always begin with a prayer. The prayer is very simple. You can say it any way you like. You don't have to make it complicated. And in fact, I find that the simpler the prayer, the better. But I always begin, dear God, connecting with that God force. Please allow me, if I'm giving the healing or sending out healing or preparing to give healing either to someone else or to myself, dear God, please allow me to connect to your healing energy. Please allow me to be a part of the healing process of that God force, of that purity, of that God force which is out there. Allow me to be a part of that process. Allow me to be a part of that energy, and allow me to share that energy with whoever you decide I should share that energy with. And we always finish this prayer, or I always finish my prayer, dear God, I will to thy will. In other words, my will is not so important. God decides. It is God's will that we're trying to follow. It is God's will that we're trying to connect with. And that doesn't mean that, God won't heal your puppy sitting on your lap. I'm sure that God's will is to give healing to whoever and wherever who needs it. So, but it's very important for us as healers to understand that, we are joining forces with that God force, that purity, that God force, that God energy that is out there. We are asking God, can we get together here? Can I join with you? Can I be a part of the process of healing? That's what we're asking him. Can I be the part of your process? Can I connect my energy with that pure God force that is out there? Can I connect my energy with yours so that when I send out healing, or when I'm thinking about someone or giving someone healing in some way or another, it's going to be much, much bigger and much more powerful healing than it ever would be if it was just me personally giving out my own little bit of energy and little bit of healing energy. So joining with that God force, I think, is a very important thing to do. And it's also a responsible thing to do. And I keep sort of mentioning the responsibility of this, because when we start sending out healing and when we start thinking about others and we're sending our thoughts out to them, I've just explained the thought process to you. When we're starting to send those things out to other people, we better make very, very sure that the energy that we're sending out is good and it's positive and it's powerful. It's going to do something positive for the person we are thinking of. So joining with that God force, asking for God for his help, for his guidance, asking, please allow me to be part of your healing process, I think is very, very important, because it is the responsible thing to do. Chris.
Well, Gary had asked the question, you may have answered it here. How do we prepare ourselves before giving healing?
Again, if you go to my YouTube channel and you go to the Healing Hands Around the World, there are quite a few videos where I help people, and I actually, literally you can find little tutorials on how you prepare yourself, how you sit, how you think, how you draw energy to you, how you raise your level of consciousness. And it's It's not a long process. If you go to the videos and look at them, you'll see I can talk you through. First of all, we have a tutorial on how to raise your level of consciousness. I also talk about giving healing. There's another tutorial where we talk about giving healing using visual aid and visual creative colors, so that we can use color healing, because each color has its own certain vibrational level, and each color is a certain vibration, which helps us to determine, for instance, would my patient benefit from me visualizing the blue around him? Would my patient benefit from a little blue and a little pink in there, and so on and so forth? And if you go to these little tutorials, you'll see how each color has its own type of energy, and how using visualization techniques, which you'll find on YouTube, how we can use those techniques to prepare ourselves, first of all, to center ourselves. We talk more about this in the tutorials. Again, we don't have, we're going to be trying to talk. I'm going to try and answer as many questions as I possibly can. But go to the YouTube channel, which is Healing Hands Around the World, and of course my name there. And you can see lots of different videos where I can actually encourage you and show you what it is that you need to do. So Gary, that's maybe something that you might like to try. Chris.
Leslie says, my husband is having a cyst on the back of his head removed soon. How do you see that going?
Gosh, well, first of all, it's got to be painful. And second of all, I think it's going to be fine. Next question, Chris.
The next question is from Violet. Hi, Rosemary. I hope you're well.
Hi, Violet.
How would you heal the mind? Intrusive thoughts in particular. Is there a specific color to visualize which may help?
Well, I think, gosh, I like the question. And there are so many people who get so caught up in what's going on in their mind, the situations, the people that they meet. We have people who are actually, they're depressed, they're on drugs or whatever. We don't need any of that. Again, I'm going to mention the YouTube channel, but there are so many videos on there that can help you. And healing is not just, in fact, first and foremost, it is not at all the healing of the physical body. First and foremost, healing is a healing of the soul. We're going to be trying to give healing and healing energy to the soul. If we can bring light and understanding, if we can inspire the soul, if we can feed the soul, if we can help the soul to grow, which is what healing is, then lots of other things take place. Very often a healing of the physical, most definitely the healing of the mind, healing in itself, just the very process of sitting down and raising your level of consciousness and visualizing and using visualization techniques. Again, I'm going to point you to the YouTube channel, to Healing Hands Around the World, where you can see that I do all of these different things for you. But healing, healing is, it's an energy that once it flows to the soul, once the soul is brighter, lighter, once we feed the soul, then that energy, that aura that surrounds the soul, which we call the spirit, which is the spirit of the soul, the aura of the soul, flows through our body, literally flows through us, not just the physical body, but mind, body, spirit, all of it. So that energy literally creates and can create such peace and such harmony within us, using different colors and using visualization techniques, which again you can find me on YouTube. Go to the Healing Hands Around the World YouTube channel and take a look and see the different things that I suggest. But visualizing different colors can be very, very helpful, and you can visualize either if you're wanting to, if you have confusion, or you're just distressed or distracted, or whatever it is going on there in your mind, you can actually visualize. And I'm going to suggest you can visualize, however you want to. You can visualize lying on a beautiful beach, or visualize the blue water, again, its color, blue water, sort of flapping around. You can visualize the blue sky, green grass, or whatever at the side there. You can visualize. But I would also always suggest, if you're having issues with your mind and you can't get your mind still, or you can't get it quiet, there are two colors which are important to visualize to quiet your mind, and they would be the color green, a nice lush, that beautiful green of the new leaf that's coming out on the bushes, that beautiful soft, bright, beautiful green, plus lots of pink, lots of beautiful baby pink. And you can sort of visualize them those colors threading together. Earlier on, when we were talking about doing this show, I said, I'm going to talk about how we can heal the world. What a challenge, but not necessarily healing the world, but sending healing and creating healing energy around our planet. It's quite simple, again, using visualization techniques. We visualize the world. Now, if you're a person who says, oh, I'm no good, I can't visualize, I'm no good at visualizing, then Google it, put it on your TV, have a world spinning, use that as that creative device. If you can't actually, using your mind, visualize the world or the earth or this planet that we're on, and then visualize, imagine that you've got all these beautiful, beautiful colors, blues, golds, greens, pinks, and you can intertwine them. And you can literally, treat it like a ball of string, if you like. You can wrap it around and up and down and sideways, but fill this earth of ours with the most beautiful healing colors. When I was talking today about my garden. I've got hibiscus and I've got ixoria and beautiful colors. And yellow is the yellow hibiscus. The flower is huge. It's about like this size. And in the center, it has this gorgeous sort of beautiful darker center to it. If you can't visualize, then go to a park or read a book or go on Google or however it is you can find these things. And then just use your imagination, if you like, visualize these beautiful, beautiful colors of golds and greens and blues and pinks, and always light and beautiful. And just visualize that they're wrapping around you and they're wrapping around this earth of ours, because every single color that we talk about has a vibration. Everything to do with this planet, everything to do with this earth of ours, everything to do with the universe, everything is about vibration and finding the right vibrational level. And as we sit quietly and we visualize these things and we sort of put our minds to it, because the thought is the most powerful thing that we possess. Visualize these things and create within your mind, or even on TV. If you've got an iPad that's got a pencil, by all means draw it. If you've got a piece of paper and you've got crayons and pencils, draw it, just draw rainbows of color that sweep around, and that, you know, that when you're connecting with each of those colors, you're connecting with a certain vibrational level, which will in itself create healing for the soul, which in itself then spreads through us, giving our physical body, our etheric body, our mind, our heart, our soul, our well-being. It just literally can flow through you. It's honestly not a complicated thing to do. And again, I'm going to point out, go to the YouTube channel, go to Healing Hands Around the World, and you'll see me describing different ways that we can give healing, and also describing how we can sit and prepare ourselves to raise our level of consciousness. What does that mean, raising our level of consciousness? It means raising ourselves to a higher vibrational level so that we're connecting with those vibrations in a positive and a good way. Chris?
The other thing I was thinking about is your guided meditation, A Journey Toward Healing. We can provide a link on Spotify if people want it.
Excuse me, yes. We do have a few different meditations, but the Journey Towards Healing is my first one, inspired by my patient Wendy. I was doing a radio show, and I had a patient, Wendy, who was she had cancer, and she was close to nearing her time. And this particular morning, her husband told me later, this particular morning, she woke up and she couldn't move and she couldn't speak, and she just decided she wanted to stay in bed because she was very sick. And her husband put the radio on for her, not realizing that the station he'd chosen was actually doing an interview with me. So the next thing, her husband's sitting with her, they're listening to this radio show, and along I come, and I'm talking, and the guy's asking me different questions about different things, and I'm talking and so on. And Wendy, my patient lying in bed, who could barely blink, she barely had the energy to blink when she woke up, heard my voice, and her husband said, as soon as she heard your voice, it was like, I guess the vibration in the room changed, and she became more animated, and the next thing she was up, and the next thing she wanted to get dressed. And I actually stopped by her house on the way home, and her husband was saying, oh my gosh, she heard your voice. And then Wendy told me, as soon as I heard your voice, I felt so much better. So I went home that very same day, talked to Grey Eagle, and we developed this, the first of our healing meditations, which I titled Journey Towards Healing. And then, you know, I made a, you know, it was just a regular copy that I'd made myself. I took it to Wendy, and she played it and played it and played it. And then when she passed, she had specifically asked that I should be given, it was very little, I think it was like £100, which is, I don't know what it is in dollars, but anyway, so that I could go and have this healing tape recorded, you know, especially because she wanted other people to share it. And so we did that. I found this guy, and I went to his house, and we did the recording, and it was great because Grey Eagle was sort of, the guy was in another room recording. I was actually sitting out in the hallway, sitting on a stool, and Grey Eagle was standing in front of me like the maestro with the baton. And we thought that the end of this, we thought, well, we don't quite know how long this is going to last, and we knew that there's on any CD, it was CDs in those days, on any CD, it was, you know, you had a limited time. Well, surprise, surprise, the guy called me. He said, you know, we're going to have to get together to edit it to see, you know, if we need to do more or if we need to do less. But he said, I think you might need to sort of cut one or two bits out. But surprise, surprise. Remember, Grey Eagle was the maestro. He was the conductor, and I was just following along and recording this session. And amazingly, it was just to time, exactly the meditation was exactly the right amount of time that we had on the CD. So we didn't have to change it or alter it in any way. And gosh, that seems such a long time ago, and it was quite a long time ago, but it's still very, very much a part of, you know, what people will use. We give it out to hospitals, we give it to people in, you know, homes who might need it. And you can, as Chris said, you can get it on Spotify, and it's a great meditation. So if you can use that, if you, before healing, you can use it, or you can use it for yourself, or you can share it with people that you know, or the patients you might have, those of you who are healers listening in. It's a great meditation, and it actually does mention colors. That's all I'm going to say about it, because but it's great. And if you are interested in healing, either for yourself or for others, you might want to check it out. A Journey Towards Healing by Rosemary Altea on Spotify. There you are. Chris.
Gary says, when giving healing, I visualize pain and discomfort rising above the patient in a big blue balloon until it disappears.
I like that visual. That sounds great. Yeah. that sounds like a good visual. And each healer, everyone who is a healer, you know, you'll listen to me, you'll perhaps watch my, you know, healing videos, you'll perhaps watch the tutorials, but as time goes on, you will develop your own way of doing things, which is as you should, because every healer approaches things differently. Just please be mindful. First and foremost, connect with that God force. Be mindful of the responsibility that you have to others, because you're dishing your energy out, and you've got to make sure that it's the most positive and powerful energy that you can produce. So do please be mindful of the responsibility of that. Chris.
Caroline says, your voice is very calming. It calms me a lot.
Caroline, I have to tell you. Okay, somebody said that to me the other day. Just keep talking. I love to hear you talk. Well, you have no idea what this voice can do, because it can put you to sleep in a heartbeat. I know you say it's very calming, but especially when I'm doing a meditation, or especially if I am sort of talking about specifically about healing, actually, or especially if I'm talking to people who have suffered a loss, and specifically the loss of a child, which I've been doing a lot of recently. People often say, I love your voice, just keep talking. And I often find I'm giving healing to a patient who is now sort of, what with the energy and the voice and everything going on there, people start to nod off. I'm either very boring or I'm very calming. I like to think that I'm very calming, and thank you for mentioning that. Chris.
All right, we do not have any more questions in the chat room, but Gary does say he had a good teacher.
Oh, really? Well, first of all, let me point out that as soon as the questions end, so do we. So if you want more, you better get on with it. I'm going to tell a story, and then I'm going to ask Gary who his teacher was. So, because it's always a good thing to know that too, right? If the teacher was so good, well, we want to know who that teacher is, right? Anyway, before we answer that, I'm going to um, tell you a story, um, and it's a somewhat difficult story to tell because not all stories end necessarily well, and not all stories are necessarily they don't necessarily seem to be positive, although my stories always do end on a positive note. But I remember um, the very, very first patient that I had, going back, gosh, so many years. However, I will never forget even the most intimate of details of this patient. So I was home. I was home, and it was nighttime, and Samantha was in bed asleep, and the phone rang. It might have been close to midnight. I always used to stay up way past midnight. Not anymore. I can't do it anymore. But I always, my daughter laughs at me now because it's like I'm a reverse. I'm in bed earlier rather than later. But anyway, so the phone rang, and I picked it up wondering who was calling at this, late hour. And I was in England at the time, and living in England at the time, I should say. And all I could hear on the other end of the phone was sobbing and crying and wailing. And I could hear someone trying to talk to me, but I couldn't understand a word that they were saying because they were obviously too distressed. So I gave it a few minutes, and then I started to talk and to ask this person could they please calm down, because I couldn't hear what they were saying. And you can imagine this took a little while. But anyway, the upshot of the phone call was that this lady was calling me because she'd been to the hospital that day with her son, who was maybe, I'm going to say 7 or 8, maybe. And she'd been given the news. Her son apparently had had cancer for quite at least 3 years. And she'd been told that she was, at the hospital, that there was nothing else they could do for him. They were going to send him visiting nurses. They were going to, do as much as they could to help her. But there was nothing else. There was no more treatment. He'd had a couple of surgeries. There was nothing else that they could do for this child. And so, as often happens, there are people like me who, well, I guess you might say that we're a last resort, which is unfortunate because sometimes if, people approach us early enough, we can actually have some really good positive results. Anyway, so she told me about her son, and she told me, about what was happening and so on and so forth. Anyway, I talked to her on the phone for quite a long while, and then I offered to come and see him. She begged me, actually, if I could come and see him. And, we both knew what she was asking. She was asking, the doctors are done. They can't do any more. So I've come to you for the miracle, is what she was saying to me. And I think we both knew. She hoped and hoped and hoped that I was that miracle worker who could wave the magic wand and save this child. But unfortunately, we both knew that probably wasn't possible. But still, I went to her house, and it was very difficult for me because first of all, he was my first actual patient outside of my teaching and students and so on. But he was also just this little boy. He'd had cancer for a long while, so he looked much, much younger than he actually was, and very small, very white complexion. And the thing that I think was the hardest for me to see was that he had no hair. He'd obviously been having chemotherapy and he'd lost all of his hair. And when you're looking at a small child, and I know that many of you have had this experience, and many of you have had your own children who have gone through all of this. But to me, this was, number one, my first patient, number two, a child, and number three, the heart. I was not expecting the heartache and the heartbreak that I felt, which was, of course, nothing compared to what the mother felt. Anyway, I went in there, and this little boy's name is Mark, and I remember sitting with him, talking to him, getting to know him, making him smile a little bit. I also talked to his mother, who was quite heavily pregnant at the time. She was lovely. So I explained what I was going to do, what I was going to try to do, and so on. And I think that even though the mother probably knew there was not going to be that miracle that she wanted, she had someone in her corner, you know, who was not a doctor, not a nurse, just someone who could help and someone who could be there. So as you might imagine, I visited Mark as often as I could, which was fairly often. And he and we talked about angels. He'd asked me lots of questions about different things. And the last time I went to visit him, he waited until his mother had gone into the kitchen, because it was a ritual. She'd always go into the kitchen and make us a cup of tea and leave Mark and I to ourselves. And I remember he was laid on the sofa and he had a blanket over him. It was such a tiny little thing. And these huge eyes looking out of this very pale face. And he said to me, "Rosemary, I'm really, really tired." And I said, and I held his hands and I said, "I know, darling, you know, you must be exhausted." He said, "I just want to go home." I said to him, "And where is home?" He said, "I just want to go to the angels." He said, "I think I'm ready now." And I knew that he knew. Yes, he was ready. So he asked me questions. What could he expect? What would it be like? What's it like to die? What will I see? Will I see anyone when I get there? Will I be by myself? Lots of questions. And the two of us just sat there, and I was holding his hands, and I was being as honest with him as I could be, because, you know, you can't fool kids. They know when you're not telling the truth, or they know when you're holding something back from them. So in the gentlest and the most careful way that I possibly could, I tried to answer his questions. I knew that his mother was standing in the kitchen and she was listening to this conversation. She knew by this time that he was going, and she knew it would be soon. But she stood in the kitchen and very, very quietly, very still, she listened as he asked me all of these questions, and she listened to my answers. And in the end, at the end of our conversation, he said to me, "Rosemary," he said, "do you think it'll be long now? How much longer do I have to wait?" I'm really, really tired and I'm really ready to leave. I don't want to leave my mum, but I'm really ready to leave. And I said to him, well, Mark, I think it's going to be very, very soon now. I think if you can close your eyes and if you can sleep and rest, I think you'll find that your angels will very, very soon now. I think you'll find they'll come for you. And he smiled at me and I smiled at him. And then his mother came bustling in with the tea, trying to look as if she hadn't listened and trying to look as if she hadn't heard and trying to hold it together because she did not want to let go of her boy. And we sat there and I had a cup of tea and I talked to the mother for a bit. And as I was talking, somebody just said, you know, my voice is very calming. As I was talking to Mark's mum, this beautiful child just closed his eyes and went to sleep. Eventually, I stayed with the mum for as long as I could, and then eventually I left. And she called me the next morning to say that he had passed. There was part of her which, you know, did not want to let her child go, but the other part of her was so relieved that he wasn't struggling anymore, that he had no pain anymore, that his questions now, all of the questions he had about death and dying, they'd be answered now. And I remember going over and sitting with her and holding her, and she cried for a long time, and we just sat there quietly, the two of us. And I remember rocking her and talking to her about what a beautiful child she had, what a beautiful child Mark was, and that he would be happy. And I tried to explain to her the process of dying, and she listened. And then she just put her arms right around me and gave me a big sloppy kiss on the face and said, thank you for being there. Thank you for being there for me. And thank you for being there for Mark. I've never forgotten that child. Beautiful, unbelievable. And I know that he's with his angels, and I'm expecting that he's busy doing all sorts of things right now. Being a healer is not an easy thing. Being a healer means that, you know, you have to think about your patient all the time, and you have to be responsible for them and for their family. Not only do you have to be there for the patient, but it's important that you're there for the carer too. I'm probably putting some of you to sleep with my voice now, because I know how soft it can get and I know how calming it can be. So if you've fallen asleep, I'm going to wake you up by saying, wake, you can wake up now. And so Chris, that's a great story. It sounds as if it's a sad story, but actually it's a beautiful story, because I got to sit with Mark as his angels came for him. And it can't get any better than that, can it? So is there anybody still awake, first of all? And do we have any more questions, or are we going to end this session?
I'll give you some comments first.
Okay.
Rhonda says that was such a beautiful story. Annika says, such a moving story. What a privilege for you to have been able to do that for Mark and his mother. Caroline says, that must have been very, very hard for you, but harder still for Mark's mom.
There are many times I've walked away from a patient, and I make it a point, and I always say to my students, you do not, no matter how hard it is. You do not cry in front of the patient. We're there for the patient. It is not our job to pour out our hearts and our pain into the mix. If you can't hold it together, many a time I've sent one of my students, go away. It means go to the bathroom, pull yourself together. If you want to come back, that's fine. And if you can't, that's also fine. But you cannot, you have to be strong for your patients, and you have to be strong for the family. Weeping and wailing when everybody else is weeping and wailing is not going to help anything and anyone. But I will tell you, many a time I've left a hospital room. Many a time I've left the hospital and I've been driving home. Many a time I've arrived home and I am sobbing and sad and just for the pain that people have to go through. But as much as I'm crying and as much as things move me, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be allowed to share with them in their grief and their hurt and their pain. I'm so grateful to them for allowing me to be a part of the process. Okay, Chris.
Let's see. Albertine says, Rosemary, do animals feel the healing just as humans? Thank you.
Oh my gosh, yes. Animals are very receptive to healing. And in fact, lots of animals are able to give us healing too, as we all know. But my puppy Cachorro, I can remember my lovely, he was my dog whisperer. He's an amazing guy, and he was a dog breeder, and I got to know him really well, and I used to take my dogs to him for training. And what would happen would be that he would have a puppy, they'd have a litter, and then he'd sort of sit in a chair for perhaps an hour at a time, maybe once or twice a day, and watch how the puppies interacted with each other, watch how they interacted with their mother. And by watching the puppies and by watching them all interacting, he could literally tell what kind of animal, what personality, and so on. And he would learn a lot about his puppies that way. Anyway, one day he has a litter of 4 puppies, and he's sit there with their mother, and he's sort of sitting outside, outside the pen, just watching them interacting. And he noticed that one of the puppies was sort of sitting away. There are 3 puppies with their mother, and this one little puppy was sitting away from them. And every time he went in, this same little puppy would always be sitting to the side, not interacting with the others at all. And one day, sitting in the chair, now he is not psychic in any way, not in any way. He does have great faith, and he has great faith in God and so on. So, okay, so he's sitting there this one day, and he's looking at this little puppy, wondering what's going on with this puppy that it won't interact with its mommy or its brothers and sister. And so he's sort of looking at the puppy, and he hears a voice quite clearly, not in his head, outside of his head. He hears a voice which says, Rosemary's dog. And he's looking at this little thing, right? So he shrugs it off, and he thinks, no, I've just got Rosemary on my mind, because I was due to come and pick up my dogs in the next couple of days. So the next time he sat there, and he's looking at the puppy, and he hears the voice, but it's a little bit louder this time, and it's clear, and the voice says to him, that's Rosemary's dog. Now, these puppies are expensive. You don't just give them away, and Fred could not afford to give his puppies away. He was relying on the puppies to bring him his income and so on. Anyway, so third time he's sitting in the chair, And the voice is even louder still, and he can't ignore it. He's been trying to ignore it, but he now can't ignore it when it says, "That is Rosemary's dog." So I come a couple of days later to pick up my two puppies, and I'm getting out of the car. Fred comes to me and he says, "Oh, I've got a puppy for you." And I'm laughing because he knows I've got two and I don't want a third. There's no way I want a third animal, not happening. So, and I'm laughing. I think he's joking with me, and I'm laughing. And he says, "No, really." He said, "Come on in and have a cup of tea. I'm going to tell you this story." So he tells me the story. So then he says, "Come on, I'll show you the puppy. I'll show you them." So he takes me to this nice big pen. The mother's there and the four puppies are there. And he reaches down and he hauls up one of these puppies and he says, "Here you go," and hands the puppy to me. And I'm struggling because I don't want a puppy and I don't want to hold them, definitely. And I'm not a puppy person, I'm not, well, I'm a puppy person for my puppies, but anyway, so very pretty, very nice. He's gorgeous, Fred. Thanks very much. And I hand him back and I say, "Thanks, but no thanks." So off I go. And I'm driving home and I've got my two puppies in the back of the car with me. And all the way home, I'm thinking, what if whoever buys the puppy mistreats the puppy? What if he doesn't have a happy life? What if he doesn't have a good owner? What if this? What if that? What if the other? And I'm driving. It's a 2-hour drive home. And by the time I get home, I'm starting to feel really guilty that I've left this puppy behind, even though I don't want a puppy at all. Anyway, I wake up the next morning. It's been in my head, going around and around. And then I give in and I pick up the phone, and Fred picks up the phone and he starts laughing. He said, "I wondered how long it'd take you." So I said, "Is anybody claiming the puppies yet?" He said, "No, 3 or so, but I've kept this one for you. Because when you hear God say to you, that puppy belongs to Rosemary," he says, "I'm not arguing with God." So I drove all the way back down there and I picked him up, the puppy I mean, and brought him home. And it turns out that he was an amazing dog. He was a healer and he had the ability to heal. And I could go on with these stories and tell you how he put his paw on a woman's breast, and when she went for her whatever it was, to take the breast off, they looked for the tumor, which they knew was there because they'd only looked a few days before. But just prior to surgery, they thought, let's just check and make sure we've got the exact area. And the tumor wasn't there. It was gone. It was disappeared. And so on we can go about our animals. But yes, there are animals who heal and there are animals who can be healed. And I've seen my puppies on many occasions. And even as I'm talking to you, I can see out of the corner of my eye that Nino and Cachorro are right there, just off to my left there. Anyway. Anything else, Chris? Moving on.
Aren't you lucky?
Yes, I am lucky.
Barb says when healing takes place of the soul and their mind, how would it help the physical body?
In every way. Because that energy that the soul, when you feed the soul, it becomes bigger, it becomes brighter, it becomes lighter. And in other words, the energy field, or the spirit is the energy field that surrounds the soul, that energy permeates into every single spot and space and pore. It seeps through you. So whatever that energy is happening to the soul, feeding the soul, is also feeding us too. So this is how we get energy, because we have this connection to the soul that we need to feed our soul, and our soul in turn feeds us. I think that's the best way to put it. Next, Chris, anything else going on?
Well, 2 questions. Are you doing healing tonight? And Gary said, "You're really asking me who my teacher was
Yeah,
or is?"
wait a minute. All the time I've been talking, let me just tell you all. I said to you earlier, there are many ways to give healing. And all the time I've been talking to all of you, I have been giving healing. Somebody actually said, your voice is very calming, Rosemary. Yes, they're feeling the calm, because even as I'm talking to you, whenever I am with you, I am sending out my healing energy. It is not, you can do a 5 minute or 10 minutes or whatever. We can do the ritual of it. But healing happens naturally and spontaneously. And as I'm talking to you, my energy is flowing from me to you. And as you're listening and absorbing my words, you're also absorbing my energy, which is me giving healing to you. So I don't need to do the ritual. Okay, sit up straight, hands, palms upwards. You don't. Go to YouTube. Here we go again. Go to YouTube, go to Healing Hands Around the World, and you'll find out how we do it. If we're giving a 5 minute or a 10 minute healing to someone, you don't need to give any more than that. But all the time I've been talking to you, you have been receiving healing. And I hope that makes you feel better. And if you rewind this, or because it'll go to YouTube at some point, watch it again. I am sending you healing. I'm giving you healing. Every time you hear my voice, I'm a healer. It's not what I do, it's who I am. I'm a spiritual medium and a healer. It is not what I do, it is what I am. Yes, Gary, I want you to say it out loud. Who is your teacher?
He says, "You, from June 19th, 2000, in a high school gym in Manchester, Vermont.
Oh,
You
golly.
will always be my teacher, and I will always be your thankful student."
Ah. Well, thank you, and thank you for saying that, and I appreciate it. Now I think we're coming to a close, right, Chris?
You are over time, yes.
How could we go over time? Of course we're over time. So I'm going to say to all of you, and I'm going to send out healing specifically to Gary's mom, who I know well, and we're sending healing to her, and also to Gary as the carer. And anybody else out there, if you want some more, all you have to do is rewind this and you'll get healing from me. I know it's weird, I know it's but when you're listening or when you're watching something, vibration is everything, and you are getting that vibrational level which feeds you and feeds your soul. It's very, very simple. All right, I hope you've enjoyed our healing session tonight, and we'll do it again. I want lots of questions. I want to teach you things. I want to inspire you. I want you to learn as much as you possibly can about this subject, so that, so we're not in the dark about it. We want to be in the light, and we want to stand in the light, and we want to be inspired by what we hear, what we see, and what we feel, most especially. So I hope you enjoyed my stories. It's been a great night. I'd like to say, of course, thank you to Grey Eagle for being here. As always, thanks, Chris, for the facilitating. Thank you to all of you for watching. I shall be back next Thursday morning with the Spirit World Sees All. I'm not quite sure if I'll be back for anything else, but definitely next Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can always email if you want to join us with Grey Eagle Speaks. That's happening on the 13th of December. That will be a wow of a show, we hope. We never know what's going to happen, but just listening to Grey Eagle and just hearing him and hearing his wisdom is amazing. And last year, we do this perhaps once a year, and last year we had Jesus join us. I mean, come on. I mean, yeah, wow. Mind blowing, mind boggling. So if you want to know more about that or more about what we do, just email Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com. Put in the subject line whatever you're interested in, ask your questions, and Chris, our wonderful facilitator, will do her best to answer your questions the best that she can. Okay, I think that's it. So please, everyone, have a very, very blessed rest of the evening. Thank you for joining me. I hope my fans in England are not sound asleep and have missed half the show. Anyway, so thank you for joining me, and I'll see you all next time. In the meantime, please, everyone, have a very, very, very blessed rest of the night and have a very blessed weekend. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.